Hey everybody, welcome back to Leosophy. This is the first episode about beekeeping. So, the reason why I chose to make a beekeeping episode in December is one, people were requesting it, and two, more importantly, now is actually the time to act if you're interested in bees. You don't really buy beekeeping equipment and bees in like March, April, May. You buy all those things in preparation, and also if you wait more than a month, if you wait until like the middle of January or early February to buy bees, you will not find any. So now's the time if you're interested in getting into beekeeping to start. So here are the things that you will need if you want to have bees. One, bees. I know it sounds like it goes without saying, but that's actually pretty important in the sense that you're going to have a pretty big decision to make because this is not a cheap thing to get into. Now, that being said, most of the real pain comes all at once. It's not a buy once, cry once kind of phenomenon, but it's pretty close to that. They're relatively inexpensive to keep once you have the things you need. So, what are the things you need? Well, you need to determine whether you want a package of bees or a nuke. And there's some pros and cons either way. Packages you can get in the mail, or you can pick them up, and they're much less expensive. Nukes, on the other hand, are like, let me tell you what a package is first. Package is just a little box with probably somewhere between 100 and 300 bees, I would guess. I'm not the best at guessing, though. Kind of like the jar of jelly beans that you have to get a prize if you know how many. Not so great at that. But it's somewhere in that ballpark. It's a small number of bees. And then in the middle of said package, in her own little canister, is the queen. And she can emit aromas, different pheromones, and communicate with the workers. And she's usually painted, usually marked, but not necessarily. And there's a candy plug that keeps the workers from actually actively entering her little chamber. And what you do is you open that package, you place her on her little chamber between two frames, and you dump the rest out on top of the frames. And then you cover it with a lid. They will not sting you. It's almost impossible for them to sting you because they're in swarm mode and they're not interested in anything but staying around where the queen is because that's part of the pheromone she's emitting. And then you cover it with the lid, you leave, and you seal off the entrance with an excluder that keeps them from going in and out too much, otherwise they might just leave, abscond. And then you come back after about 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days, usually 3 days, to see if that plug was eaten through. And by the time it's eaten through, they should have acclimated and accepted her as the queen. That doesn't mean it'll work perfectly, but generally speaking, that's what happens. If you were to remove that plug early, and they haven't accepted her yet, they might kill her. Because, again, being in a package is stressful, and they might associate her with all the bad things that have happened. So that's very important. Nukes are a different matter. Nukes are much more expensive, usually at least twice as expensive. And you are more likely, if you're afraid of getting stung for the first time interacting with bees, you're a little bit more likely. You will need smoke and a veil for this. For sure. I mean, I recommend you take all the precautions you need to be comfortable regardless. But a nuke is already established. It's like a mini hive. It's like 2 or 3 frames of brood and honey and the whole 9 yards and several hundred, if not 1,000 workers, and a queen that has already been accepted. So all you really have to do is take those frames and put them inside of a beehive. That's all you have to do. You do need smoke, though, because they will attack you. So, yeah, that's the difference. Why the big price point? Why is it a conundrum at all? Well, if you want a colony that is almost guaranteed to survive that year, a nuke is the way to go. The odds of survival is much higher with a nuke than it is with a package because it's already got brood. It's already got honey. It's already got food stored. It's already got workers who are absolutely loyal to said queen. With a package, you don't have any of those things. It's a newly pregnant queen and some workers who are almost certainly her younger siblings, but they don't really know if she's a good queen yet or not. So that's the conundrum. A lot of it has to do with price, and a lot of it also, if you have a phobia, or you think you might have a phobia, you've not really interacted with bees a lot, a package is probably a good way to sort of break that, because it's a lot safer, because they're in swarm mode and therefore they're not aggressive at all. There's really nothing to protect. So, and workers do die after they sting, so they're not going to take that kind of risk generally. You'd have to do something really crazy dumb to get stung by a package. It could happen, but it's very unlikely. So that's the first conundrum that you might have, is which one do you order. Additionally, you'll need the following accompaniments to said hive. One, a hive. Yeah, I know, again, it kind of goes without saying. There's a lot of hives that people are interested in. I've seen some people with the old school wicker basket hives. I've seen people with those new honey flow hives that you don't have to interact with. If this is your first time beekeeping and you want honey and you want to get into bees, you want to learn about bees, get a Langstroth hive. That's the classic white box with frames inside. That's what you need. At the very least, if you're interested in bees, bare minimum what you need is a Langstroth hive body and 8 to 10 frames. Why 8 to 10? Depends on how you want to layer them. Yeah, personally, what I do, for the body, I put 10. For the top body, which comes later, don't worry about it right now, I put 10. And then for the super, which comes much later, so don't worry about that right now, I put 8. Because in terms of surface area, you get more honey if you use 8. That's just my personal preference. It is a very contentious issue. Different beekeepers use different numbers, but it's either 8 or 10. That's what you want, 8 or 10. And it just has to do with how many frames you want in the body. Okay? All you need is said body, said frames, an inner lid cover, and a lid. That's all you need. Basic frame stuff. They're only going to use that hive body for the first couple of months. You might want to get a second body while you're at it, because, they are going to need it eventually. You might not even worry about supers yet. Super is just a little tiny, it looks just like a hive body. It looks just like the regular box, but shorter, and that's for robbing. You are almost certainly not going to be able to rob the first year. You're more likely if you get a nuke, but still. So you might want to even put off on that until your second year of beekeeping. Maybe. That's really up to you. In Kentucky, at least, we've had some really rough winters, and I don't know if it's going to be a good year for robbing anyway this upcoming late summer, early fall. But you definitely need at least one hive body and 8 or 10 frames. Additionally, you're going to need a smoker. Absolutely need a smoker, unless you are, even if you're like Mr. Hippy Dippy, watch the Burt's Bees documentary, I don't need no smoker, I'm just going to open the hive. At least buy one, so you'll have one if you think you'll need it, because it is useful. What a smoker does, by the way, it does two things. One, it makes the bees think there might be a fire nearby, so they eat a lot of honey. They gorge themselves on honey. Cuts back on their productivity a little bit, like a day's worth. But it also calms them down, because they're more worried about that than the big mammal that's towering over them. And two, they communicate through signals, pheromone signals, scents, in other words. And when they see you, that's what they're going to do to each other. They're going to rile each other up using scents, using the intruder aroma. Well, smoke is going to cover that up. So it greatly reduces the aggression of the bees if you use a smoker. So have a smoker, have something that you put in said smoker. I like pine needles personally, but there's smoker fuel, you can use newspapers, there's a lot of things people use. Let's see, smoker, you need a hive tool. Hive tool is what allows you to pry frames apart, and they'll use propolis, a glue that they get from tree sap, to glue the frames together. So you'll definitely need a hive tool. There's two kinds. One looks like a crowbar, and one looks more like, well, it's got the end piece like a crowbar, but the other part is kind of a hook shape. It's really a little more up to personal preference. So definitely have a hive tool, a smoker, a hive body with frames, and a package or nuke of bees. Those are the absolute minimum things that you need if you want to get started into beekeeping. Other things you want, I definitely recommend reading some books on the matter. These videos I think will be helpful, but it's good to supplement that knowledge with something that you can kind of go back to and reread over and over again. If you live in an area where there's not a lot of water features, water sources, etc., you might want to get a chicken waterer and put something that floats, like packaging peanuts or bits of mulch, or even like pebbles up until a certain point, and just ring it with those pebbles, and that way the bees can drink from the waterer. You can put it up just about anywhere where you're not worried about it being disturbed, and they can drink from that without fear of drowning. Something like that. You might also want to use a feeder in order to supplement their diet, especially if you get Italians, which that's going to be the next episode, what kind of bees to get. But that being said, that's more optional. Let's see. Last thing you'll need. I do recommend it. Again, if you want to go full hippy-dippy, like I'm the bee whisperer, I don't need anything, at least wear a ball cap when you open the hive. But I recommend a veil. I wear a veil, and I actually will wear a full suit most of the time. I tuck the legs into a pair of boots too. Boots are very good because you do not want to be in your shoes. You don't want to be caught in your hair. Those are the two big things. That being said, I don't wear gloves, ever. I never wear gloves. I find that I'm clumsy with them. I'm more likely to smush a bee. Even there's no smoke in the world that'll cover up the smell of a smushed bee. They get up very upset when they smell one of their sisters getting murdered. So I don't wear gloves for that reason. I like to have my dexterity. But, you know, if you want gloves, I mean, I own gloves just in case, but I never put them on. Yeah. So that's really what you need in preparation if you're interested in beekeeping. That's it for this episode. Like, share, subscribe, keep asking questions, and next episode we're going to be covering types of bees and other aspects of bee care. Bye.